Well, welcome to Purpose Driven Progress. Today, I'm joined by my very good friend, Seth Hudson. Today, he's really got an incredible story, a journey of perseverance, grit, and heart. Seth is a small town Iowa guy who's built multiple $1 million businesses from the ground up, all while discovering his true business mission of helping others. But his story didn't start with success, from getting kicked out of 4 high schools and struggling with self-worth to building staffing companies, real estate ventures, and even planning a charter school. Seth's path has been anything but linear. His passion for solving problems, putting the right people in the right seats, and building systems that work has driven his success. I'm excited to dive into his story and hear about the strategies he's used to scale his businesses and make a meaningful impact in his community. Seth, welcome to the show.
Jake, thank you for having me, buddy.
Absolutely. So honestly, let's talk about the story, man. I kind of gave the highlights there a little bit, but man, your story is unique and unique stories, right? So let's take it from the beginning. So you started out, like we said, like in high school, we had some struggles, right?
Oh yeah. Early on in my school years, just struggled with ADHD. Thought it was like kind of a disability. I kind of labeled myself that way as someone that's disabled, can't pay attention, but I just ran with it, They tried putting meds down my throat. I was just like, no, this makes me weak. So I was just a wild kid. And that bled over into high school, of course, and not quite paying attention, getting in trouble, getting fights in school, and unfortunately, that led to a lot of problems.
Yeah, because you were kicked out of, you said 4 high schools, right? They asked you to leave.
Yeah. Clorinda, was fighting. Got into much trouble my sophomore year, so they took me out then, and then. Went to Essex, lasted about a year and a half before I got in trouble there. South Page for 3 months. It just got worse. Worse. And then eventually I moved out to Portland, Oregon with my dad, and I got in with the wrong crew and had to come back to Iowa to escape bigger problems, bigger cities, bigger problems, and a lot more opportunity to get into big trouble. So, that's kind of how things went. And I petitioned with Clorinda. He was Mr. Ruffing, who was the principal at the time. He was gracious enough to give me a second chance at Clorinda my first senior year.
Yeah.
When I came back, he just said keep your nose clean, and I did. But man, I was still rough, and because I got kicked out of so many schools, I didn't have the credits to graduate with my class that I grew up with. So instead of graduating in 2008, I got held back my senior year. Some people call that a victory lap, and graduated in 2009.
So you got it. I mean, all things told, high school, you got it done. So what was kind of the turning point for you? Like, at what point were you like, this isn't working, I just need to buckle down and I need to get these credits and get out of here?
It's funny you asked that, because I just talked about this just yesterday. I know the exact date. It was December 22nd, 2008. Is when I knew I had to shift gears and get things and get things going. And I got my second MIP. I had just got enrolled into South Page, and I was 17. I had a cell phone. My mom rented me a house so I could live in the district, but my mom couldn't live there at the time. So I was 17 with my own house, and I knew people from Clorinda, Essex, and now South Page. And so I boarded up the windows, and we would just have fun, go crazy. And things got a little too wild one night and got in trouble, and the cops were called, and got my second MIP. And it was tough, because when I was talking to my mom about this yesterday, it's just the ride home. I'm just like, let's hear it. Give me the whole same spiel. Seth, you're going to ruin your life, Seth. But she didn't say anything. She acted completely different, as if she was kind of giving up a little bit. And I had a friend who was with me that night, who was living. We got kicked out of the house, of course, and so we came and stayed at my mom's house. So we came back to my mom's house that night. And I'm outside my old bedroom, and I'm like, all right, Mom, let's hear it. Give me the spiel. And she just looked at me, and I felt every emotion, just disappointment and sadness. And just she wasn't angry. She she's like, I've lost you.
Mm.
And that hit me the hardest feeling I think I felt to date. And it wasn't just that. It was, I walked to my bedroom and I laid down and my buddy's like, oh man, that was crazy last night. Or this tonight, I can't wait to do that again. And I looked at him and I hated him. I was like, this is why I'm struggling. I'm surrounded by the wrong people. So like that was the day. You know, a lot of people don't seem to have that moment, or I have never heard of it before, but for me, that was that day. I was like, I'm kind of a piece of, I need to get my life together, you know? So that was when I swallowed my pride. I re-enrolled back in school because I knew I had to. I tried my dad's for a little bit in Oregon, and that didn't work out. So came back and I swallowed my pride. I said, this is what I've got to do. And it was hard.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I feel like the disappointment can weigh heavier than anger a lot of the time, you know? So let me ask you this then. So we got through high school, we graduated, and it's just smooth sailing from here on out, right? Just absolutely fine.
Yeah, not quite. Not quite.
So talk me through, like, what was like your college experience life? Did you know what you wanted to do? What were you thinking?
Yeah, after I got my head on straight, you know, I still felt like I still had that self-doubt. Like fifth grade or fifth year senior comes with its, you know, it's labels. You're just like, you're dumb. You had to do 5 years. You know, it came with this thing, and it put a chip on my shoulder for the longest time. And I said, I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to show you. I'm going to be a doctor, right? I was going to be a physical therapist and get my DPT. So I kept my head down. I stayed out of trouble. I didn't drink again. And I said, I'm going to graduate. I'm going to get my associates first. And that went well. That went really well. But I was just so hard set on just proving people wrong and becoming this physical therapist. I loved kinesiology and I loved anatomy. You know, it's definitely a passion. It wasn't chosen out of nowhere, but I had blinders on, and all to, you know, have the job I wanted, but some of it was to prove other people wrong. And I'm not quite sure if that was the right idea at the time, but I was just like, this is what I've got to do. I dedicated my entire life to it. So
interesting. So to kind of talk me through your emotion, like your motivation a little bit. So it sounds like you were driven more by proving people wrong and showing them that they were wrong about you, that you're not dumb, than maybe like actually pursuing the career. I mean, is that fair? Or
yeah, it's not something that I woke up and just thought about every day. I think I got over the proving people wrong thing pretty fast, but it concreted an idea in my head is what happened. Was I was so rigid with my thinking that I'm going to be a physical therapist. I didn't think about the people that were saying, you know, negative things. It was just, you say it so much, you just start to believe it. I'm going to be a physical therapist. You just keep going. So that part was there, and everything was good for associate's degree. It was easy, but then once I went to Northwest, kind of the party side came back out again. You know,
I see.
Just like, yeah, I had a lot of structure. I was living at home. Everything was cool. And then you just get that freedom again.
Anyway, and it went kind of wild.
Went a little wild. Yeah. I think I got a 1.7 GPA my first year. I just lost focus is what happened.
Yeah. So you got through the associate's degree, things were fine, had the structure that you needed. Then you got back out of the house, and then sounds like things kind of fell flat a little bit again. We had a 1.7 starting out. So how did you come back from the 1.7 GPA?
It was I just had to find myself again. Just culture shock came and went. After that first semester, even, I was just like, I am done. I feel miserable. My grades are terrible. This is not what I came here to do. So I found focus again, and I did pretty good. I did fairly well. I graduated with a 3.4 GPA, even though getting into physical therapy school was the next step, and I was always thinking about that. And it was pretty competitive, and I think it still is to this day, but back then I think it was 3.7 or higher is what they looked for in candidates. But what I thought I lacked in GPA, I could make up for it in charisma.
Okay.
It's not the case, but Yeah.
So we graduate. We got our 3.4. We're trying to get into PT school. How does the how did the charisma plan kind of work out for you?
Oh my gosh. Not at all. Like, you have to sell yourself on paper, and I've never been great at that. I wanted an interview, but there were steps that I had to take. So, gosh, that's when it started to sink in that, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do if I don't get in? Like, that's when that fear took over, and I started volunteering even more. I said, if I can't get the grades, I'm going to get the volunteer time, and I'm going to get the experience. And so I just was back to waking up, working out, going to class, and then shadowing for 4 hours Monday through Friday, and just racking up. I would say I got 2,100 hours total. It was insane. It was insane. It was like full time over 2 years.
Man, so you were grinding.
It was such a grind, man. It was such a grind, and I was networking, and I got involved in research studies, and I led some research studies, which was really freaking cool. I loved that. But all these things to add to my resume, I was a slave to it.
Yeah.
I was a slave to it. And
so did those things, like, were you able to get into PT school then? Or, I mean, how did they react to that?
So the short answer is no. I was unable to get into PT schools. Didn't matter how hard I tried. That was a huge letdown in my life. I mean, at this point, I'd put in 6 years of my life dedicated to, this is where I'm going to be in life. And then it's funny because you think about, when you get started, you want to prove people wrong. And then when it doesn't work out, those thoughts come back.
Yeah. You feel like they were right.
Yeah. Maybe I am not supposed to, maybe I am a loser. Maybe I am, unworthy of whatever. It's a vicious thing that, putting those blinders on and not being open to different experiences, it just seems like I wasted my time. That's what it felt like.
So, if everyone asks, I mean, how many times did you try to get into PT school?
I applied to 7 schools 3 times.
So 21 total attempts?
21 total attempts.
Man. And it was just rejection. I mean, you must have felt, kind of miserable, right?
Awful. Like, I didn't even, I remember driving to my brother's place in Colorado, and I got my first rejection letter. And how it was like a knife to my chest, how simple it was. Hey, thanks for applying. We're not interested. You're just like, oh, I just spent so much time, and this is where it comes to. And then as the weeks went on, the emails came in. Hey, thanks for applying. You did not make the cut. You were not interested in the second interview or the next steps in the interview process. And, it hurt like hell, and I had no backup plan. Like, I burned my boats.
I was going to say, so, I mean, PT school has been the only thing on your mind for what, 5-6 years at this point?
Yeah, about 7 at that point. Yeah.
So, I mean, how did you, it's, we're 3 years into applications or whatever it is. We've done 20 plus of them now at this point. So how did you pivot from that?
Well, it was such a punch to the gut. After not getting in, moving back in with my mom, and all I tried to do was just reapply to PT schools and supersede classes and get my grades up. And my mom saw me for a year. Just it was crazy, Jacob. I got a bachelor's degree in biology and psychology. I was applying for jobs that paid $11 an hour that any person could get. I specifically chose night shift positions so that I could work on getting my GPA up to reapply to schools. And I was gassed out. I burned myself for a year and reapplied and nothing. And then started doing it again. And where the pivot point was my mom again.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great lady.
Hadn't given up on me yet, man. I was 25 sharing a bedroom with my nephew. Man, it was low moment in my life. and working a job. And so she's like, she gave me the tough talk is what she did. She gave me that true friend, true, I care about you talk where it's like, if this doesn't work out, what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have to start making, I can't imagine. I think about that sometimes, how tough it would be to sit your kid down and be like, maybe PT school, I'm rooting for you, but today's the last day you can apply for nursing school.
Yeah.
She's like, I remember her selling it to me and me just being like, are you kidding me? Like, I remember just being like, but I was so exhausted. I got to do something. I'm 26 at this point and I have no career. I have this piece of paper that says I tried hard. It's behind me, and she said the pivot point was nursing school and that I would reapply for the fourth time.
Let me ask you. So, I mean, nursing obviously is, medical stuff too, similar to kind of PT in a way. Was nursing like ever on your mind or was that kind of out of left field?
Hiding in plain sight is what I would say. Hiding in plain sight. Didn't even think about it, but you see it. I followed physical therapists to patients' rooms in hospitals in Maryville all the time. We would do work with them. And the nurses would be coming in and you'd hear the noises and you'd hear everything, but it never, ever crossed my mind, ever.
So it was just kind of okay, well, maybe I could try that.
It was like, I was so cocky. I was just like, that's going to be a breeze. I said, that's going to be easy. I said, all right, I can do nursing school, work full time and still work on PT stuff. I was an insane person.
Man. So, I mean, was it easy? Was it a breeze for you?
Oh my God. It's harder than your bachelor's degree. I have so much respect for nurses. You know who's superhuman? You think it's Wonder Woman or Superman? No. It's nurses. Single moms who work full time that go to nursing school and pass. Those are superhuman individuals. I have so much respect because it's so challenging. So
even in nursing school, when you're full-time nursing school and working, you're still considering like, hey, maybe PT can be a thing still?
Yeah.
So at what point during nursing school were you like, you know what, I think nursing is the thing I need to be doing?
It was a medley of things, really. Okay. I was 26 as a CNA working at a hospital. Mm-hmm. And I saw a physical therapist in their working environment again, but from a different lens this time. This is from a career standpoint. When I was in college, it's like, this is just what I have to do, right? I was so brainwashed by myself back in college that it's like, I'm going to put in these hours. It was about giving me hours, not actually immersing myself in what the actual job was. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And now that I was a CNA working at the hospital, seeing what physical therapists do, I was just like, that's boring. That's so boring. I'm seeing these nurses code patients, like sit like on top of them, giving compressions as they're wheeling them to the ER. Mm-hmm. That's the adrenaline. And I didn't know if I was trying to protect myself initially. I was like, my mind's just telling me this because I'm getting tired of applying and being rejected.
Yeah.
But it took me a while to realize it. But I saw what nurses were doing and I saw what physical therapists were doing. And I was like, maybe this isn't a bad idea. Maybe my mom was like, she's on to something.
Maybe she knows.
Yeah, she's on to something. And then it wasn't until pharmacology where you learn about the actual drugs and how they work on the body. That was just an area of my schooling that I just never got.
Okay.
I knew how the body worked. I knew kinesiology. I love the way the body moves. It's just so fascinating, all the systems. But I was missing that part was just pharmacology, just understanding drugs and understanding how they work on the body. And it just took me to a whole nother level of information. And I think it was my core concept of the body. And then having that education just made me fall in love with nursing. Mm. And by the time it was to reapply for physical therapy school, I didn't. Yeah. And I decided it was a decision. It wasn't I had known at that point that this is what I'm meant to do. This is what I want to do. I want to care for people.
Interesting. So it sounds like that was kind of, we'll get to it eventually here, but it sounds like that was kind of the first, I don't know, the first kind of take, I guess, on really driving towards your final purpose. Is that fair to say?
100%.
So, 100%. Okay. So let's talk about it here. So we've got through nursing school now, right? Things are going good. You, I assume, get a job as a nurse, right? So what are we looking at now?
So I, halfway through like being a physical therapist, the thought I found about traveling physical therapists, and I clung down pretty tight to that thought. And after not getting into physical therapy school and deciding that I actually wanted to be a nurse, I reopened that book, and I was like, there's travel nurses. I could be a traveling nurse. And when I started my first job, I was so excited. I still have, oh my gosh. From day one working at the hospital, I was asking the travel nurses there everything about everything. I knew I was going to be a travel nurse. I knew it. And I needed to put in my 2 years. I needed to get my experience. And I respected that. I respected the profession enough to not try to jump into it right away. Yeah. So in my hiring process, I said, hey, I'm here for 2 years and I'm done. And that's exactly what I did. I put in my 30-day notice on my 2-year anniversary where it ended, and I was done. I was so ready. I was still green when I think back to it. I was still a green nurse, but I'm like, I met the requirements. Let's go. Let's go.
Let's back up here just a second here. So we talked about, like I said, PT was, we kind of put that, we said that wasn't our thing anymore. Nursing was kind of our new thing, and traveling nursing in particular, right? But we realized that there's like these traveling medical professionals out there, right, in various roles. So what really first drew you to the traveling side of the business?
I mean, it's a trifecta. So imagine someone pitching you a job that's like, hey, do you want to get paid 4 times more? You're like, I'm listening. You want to travel the world, single at the time. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Do you want to just care for more people and learn as much as possible? So I looked at it as just being the best possible life I could create for myself. I travel with a purpose. I have a reason to travel, right? People schedule their 2-week vacations once a year. That's cool. Yep. Love that. I want to go every 13 weeks, and I want to just immerse myself in each city, enjoy the culture, the people, everything. And so that was an easy sell. It's the easiest sell for someone like me.
I love that. So you said it's the trifecta. So it was purpose, traveling was all the time, kind of, right? And then a high degree of financial, right? So can you kind of break that down for me? Like there's those 3 things, but what was kind of the order for you? Like, was one more important than the other?
Money was always important. I mean, growing up, or when I was making that decision, I mean, everyone's just looking at the money. No, if you broke down, travelers do get the crappier patients, but I think, you do work for that money. There's no doubt about it. You're not a traveling nurse because they're fully staffed. You're a traveling nurse and they're hiring you because they have a show that you have to show up to. The hospitals do. And so, but yeah, money was number one because I wanted to solve problems. I wanted to solve all my problems with more money, more things, more. But it was kind of tied in there. I think the new experiences and becoming a better nurse was a close second, but I wouldn't have done the job for free.
Interesting.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. So we were starting to drive towards like with our purpose, but money was still kind of a big motivator for us.
100%.
Man. 100%. Okay. So let's jump back forward here. Yes. But let's jump back forward here. So you got your 2 years in, right? And told them, hey, this day in 2 years, I'm out of here. And you stuck to your word, right? So, and when was this again? What was this within the last 4 or 5 years?
This was 2020. I believe it was May 2020. So it was just the pandemic was just getting serious in the United States.
Okay, so you quit your nursing job to become a travel nurse right at the beginning of COVID.
What a time! Yeah.
Man, that's a bold move.
Didn't know it at the time. Didn't know it. Didn't know what was to come. But yeah, like I said, thank you so much for the experience. I am out of here. And I did them a service to, like, I waited for 2 weeks until I was done to start reaching out to travel contracts. And I wanted to take a month off to just kind of relax and really just pack up my stuff, kind of. I was like, I don't know where I'm going. I'm going somewhere. And so, yeah, I was reaching out to travel agencies, and I had this vision of, I was going to live in a camper or a tiny house, and I was going to drag it around and meet new people and have a dog and
all this money.
Oh my gosh, dude. Oh, anything I want, Like, coming from nothing, it's everything to me. And
so kind of walk us through it then. So we quit our job right at the beginning of COVID. We started applying is it like agencies that you like apply for travel nursing jobs with, or okay?
Yeah, so you got like big companies out there that will contract with other hospitals, and the hospitals send in a request for nurses, how many.
Okay.
And then the agencies just say, all right, we'll go into our pool of people and see who fits that criteria, mostly through an application process that you have to fill out. So, super tedious, but they want to know that you know your stuff, and that's fair. So yeah, like I went to all the major travel agencies for nurses, right? And I'm poking around and I'm filling out the little, I'm sending emails of just like, hey, I'm looking to start my first thing, and doing the intro application to where they have all my information, and I get just call after call after call after call at that point, because the pandemic was a lot more serious in bigger cities than I had even imagined. And I remember I had family in Washington, so that stuck out, and I got a call and they said, hey, we've got a job for you in Tacoma, Washington. I was like, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly where my family's at. I got a brother out there. And it's just like, everything's just coming together, man. Like, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, this is it. I've made it. And we're asking all these questions. I'm getting to know this guy, and everything's cool, man. And then we start talking about the contract itself. And I said, okay, what can I look to make? I'm like real excited. He's like, well, this contract with you being new and you never traveling before, and you've got experience in a small town. It's just, a lot of excuses. He's like, $1,100 a week. And I said, okay, what's per diem? He's like, that includes per diem. Ooh. And I was like, I'd been studying a little bit prior to, so I was like, I know that's pretty low. I know that's even for starting, that's pretty low. But oh well, yeah, that sounds great. Let me think about it a little bit. Let me kind of search around. And he's just like, okay, yeah. He's like, we also put you in Seattle for $1,300 a week. And I was like, another just like shot to my stomach. I'm like, oh, okay. I'll do some thinking and kind of get back to you. And I went to the Facebook forums. It's all travel nurses, and everyone just makes sure that we look after each other and that we compare contracts. That way, it's our only solution to
it's only a little protection against agencies and everything else.
Yeah, taking advantage of people, and so I was pretty new to the etiquette of Facebook, and I posted, I'm new, I'm Seth, hi guys, got a job offer for Tacoma, Washington for $1,100 a week. And I remember I was at the gym on the treadmill when I made the post, and I started working out, and my phone just ding, 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 going off, notification. And there's all these travelers, and they're like, you're getting screwed. Do not take that, like, fire that recruiter. I mean, there's just, someone's like, I'm in Tacoma now making $3,300. I'm new. Yeah. And I'm like, it doesn't get any closer than that. It doesn't get any closer to that. And so I was feeding into some of the things people were saying. They're like, what's the agency? Who was your recruiter? Fire them immediately. And I was like, it's so-and-so from so-and-so. Oh, so
you named names.
I name dropped. And the internet is forever.
Yes.
I went about my day, and I said, I've decided I'm not going to do it. I'll let this guy know. In a couple of days, I'm still look around, And I remember this is one of those moments which just fried in my brain. It was 10 o'clock at night, and I'm in bed, I'm chilling, and my phone goes off, and I answer it, and the first thing they say is, "Who do you think you are?"
Oh,
and I'm just like, "Oh, they must have the wrong number, right? Must have the wrong number, you know." And he said, "Do you know?" He's like, "Do you think we don't have access to Facebook posts?" And then it hit me. It was the recruiter I had talked to earlier that day.
yeah.
And I was like, "Oh God." So I confirmed. I was like, "Is this?" And they're like, "Yeah, you know who this is." And it was such a God complex conversation where it was just, I was being bullied, but I was still like in a daze. You know, my first instinct is avoid conflict, right? I've had enough in my lifetime. I don't need any more of this. And so I'm listening to these threats, these threats of, I can't believe you do that. We had more contracts that I was going to send you, and you'll never travel. You'll never be a traveling nurse. I'm going to blacklist you from everybody. Like he made these threats to me, and it's amazing how fast you can go from being on top of the world to just feeling like you're just nothing anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I'd kind of woken up, and I was like kind of fighting back. You know, I was fighting back, just stand by your offers. Like, this is who you are. You're trying to get me for this much. Like, this is, you know, and we started arguing back and forth. He was saying all this stuff that was scary at the time because I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what kind of power agencies have. Turns out they can't blacklist nurses. It's not a thing.
Right.
But I didn't know at the time. And so I started to get a little scared, but then this went on for a little bit longer. And then finally I got fed up. And I said, how hard is your job? I said, I'll start my own agency. I'm going to do it myself. And I hung up. And at the time, I was scared and empowered at the same time. It was back to that familiar feeling of let's prove people wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and which I think can be at the time I didn't know it was my motivator, but looking back, I see that
that's what it was.
That had put me through some tough times, you know, and that's what I did. I immediately got after it. Like, I started an LLC, I got my bank account, and I had no idea what I was getting into. I had no idea the complexity of this, how expensive it would be to start a staffing agency. I had no idea. And again, this was when COVID was going on, and I went back to my hospital that I just, you know, put in my 30 days and kind of tail between the legs, like, hire me back, but I want you to hire me through my staffing company.
Yeah. Hire me as a contractor now.
Yeah. Let me be a contractor. I just need to build a reputation. So pay me exactly what you're paying me. You don't have to pay taxes on it. I'm a contractor now. Like, let's do it that way. And they, you know, I ran into my first real problem, Jacob, and that was, we can't hire you. We're already signed with a big company. You have to go through them. So
how'd
it
you
wasn't
that.
Remember the rejection letters?
Yep.
From school? Yeah. A lot of rejections, a lot of, hey, I'm a new company. I'm starting out. I'm med surg nurse. I work for myself. Click. Nope. Can I get in contact with this person? Nope. Oh my goodness. I was calling everyone. And I think to this day, I still was going about it the right way, just kind of getting in touch with the right people.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't happening. It just wasn't happening.
Let me ask you then. So there must have been days when you're in that season where you're like, hey, I'm trying to start this, because you assumed you were blackballed by these agencies. You're not going to be a traveling nurse unless you become a staffing agency and let yourself be a traveling nurse, right? So now you're not only trying to be a traveling nurse, you're also trying to create a business, a staffing business, and trying to sell that too, right? So, I mean, were there days when you were in that season of trying to get your staffing company up and running when it just felt like, I mean, who am I to start a staffing company? Like, why am I doing this? Was there much self-doubt?
Gosh, there was a lot. I wouldn't know if I would call it self-doubt. It was, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to die. Died trying. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's what it really came down to. There was many times where I thought maybe this won't happen, but it wasn't so much like I was just find a way mentality. I was just, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. So many rejections, but again, I don't think I was phased as much as someone might think. I was like, okay, let's figure out how to do it. And then I'd get a lead somewhere and I would follow that until it led to nowhere. And then I was almost like distraction kept me going. Like,
oh yeah.
A lead would go here and I would spend, 6 weeks, or I'm sorry, not 6 weeks, but 6 days. Cause I would just I wasn't, gosh, it was such a long journey. But at the time I wasn't even working. I cashed out my 401k. I was living off that and I was dedicated to making this work. I mean, $0, right? So I cashed out everything and, for 6 days, I'd follow this lead and it would turn out to be a dud. And then I would go somewhere else and then a dud. And you go through money pretty fast trying to live.
Yeah.
And so finally I said, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. I am going to continue to work on building this business, but I got to make money. So what did I do? I went back to my old ways and got a night job. And on that night job, I would work as a nurse. So I actually got hired as a registered nurse. And when the floor was quiet, this was in Omaha. This was in Omaha. And when the floor was quiet, I got to work on my stuff. I was barely sleeping. I was so excited about starting a company. I knew something was there, but it's hard to describe because this could have ended very differently. Like, my life could have been very different, but for some reason I just knew I was going to get there, but I was not treating my body well,
Yes. Yep.
Process. And so in the meantime, I was working this night shift job and it was doing okay. And I found out about, caring for people with intellectual disabilities in that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an opportunity. And I had a roommate at the time. And I said, hey man, if you do this, if you take care of, a person in my house, I can be your backup support and I can make money and still work and watch people at the house. It was all about making money because I saw how fast it went while I was trying to build. And so I was looking for jobs that were easy, that paid, like easy going jobs that just paid a little bit of money. Yeah. So I did that. I was working overnights as a registered nurse in Omaha, driving home, working my time with people, with a woman with intellectual disabilities that lived in my house. And we'd do a lot of things together. And my brain was scrambled and then I worked on the business. And then it was just this cycle of things. And it was exhausting.
I can only imagine because you were burning the candle at all ends, not just both ends, but all of them. Because you're working on your business, you're working a job, and you're also doing essentially another job by helping somebody with intellectual struggles, live their life as best as they can. So since you're still working on the business, what was kind of the first big break with your staffing company?
It was the first big break was I reached out to a local home health agency here in town. And they were so desperate. COVID, this was probably July at this point. COVID was rapid. It was everywhere. You couldn't get nurses anywhere. It was wild. And I think I reached out to them and they hired me immediately. They said, they're so desperate. They're like, we'll take you. And I was like, I have my own company. They said, we don't care. When can you start? And I was like,
and sorry, when was this again? Was this like later 2020?
Yeah, this was 2020. This was probably later July, 2020. And so I got on with her and her company, and I was like, well, I've always been that kind of person that you don't just quit a job, you give them time.
Notice.
So I swear for 2 weeks I did not sleep. I still worked my Omaha job, put in my 2 weeks immediately. I said, I found a job. And they're great. I was working overnights there. And then to start with this company that needed me, I'd drive home I'd be up at 7, get home around 8:30, and I'd be up by like 10:30. And I would go do home health work. I would just go around doing home health work. And then that would last all day. I told my roommate, I said, I can't help backup support anymore. I cling to that job because it hired my company. I cling to it. And I said, whatever you need. I was that open and willing, and it was paying me $50 an hour. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm back at it. That was my focus. That was my drive was I'm getting $50 an hour. This is insane. And so I would have her schedule the patients I saw, getting me closer and closer and closer to Omaha. And then I would just pack a lunch and I would see my patients, and I would just go straight to work at 7 and work 7 to 7, come home, sleep until they needed me.
Man. Yeah. So they really kind of got a break where you actually kind of got some income now. So fast forward, like we're in COVID, middle-ish 2020. What's the staffing company looking like in 2021?
Oh gosh. I did the home health thing for a little bit, and it turned out to be pretty sketchy. Trying not to pay me, we ran into that problem, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't stop. I didn't take my foot off the gas. I still reached out to local places, and I got my first big break. Another one of those burned moments in my brain, where I was, what I was feeling at the time. I got this text message from the chief nursing officer in Clorinda. He said, "We need nurses. Send me a contract."
Ooh. And it's a big deal.
I mean, again, you go back to like the failed physical therapy letters. They're just like not interested. And then this email, just super simple, hardly any punctuation at all.
Yeah.
Just, we need nurses. Send me contract. And I was like, oh, let's go. It's an actual hospital. They're looking at hiring me. I am over the freaking moon, man. And I start panicking. I was like, I don't even have a contract. I don't have a contract set up to take care of people in a hospital. That's a whole nother level, right? You have home health, which is very serious, but then you have hospital setting. You have huge liabilities to think about. You have general and professional liabilities to think about. And so I got on with Clorinda. I sat down with them. They took a look at my contract. I made it like, it was like $68 an hour. I was smitten. I was over the freaking moon. It was heavy COVID times, man. They had locked down hallways. I thought I was asking too much. In fact, like my first invoice I sent to them, I felt guilty. I got my first feeling of imposter syndrome. Like, I don't deserve, I think it was like $3,800 or something like that.
Yeah.
For, I think it was 1 week of work or 2 weeks, something like that. And it was like a Word document. I was so unprofessional, man. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, here's the money I need.
Yeah, I was like, please. Yeah, money, please. And I got my first sense of imposter syndrome, but at the same time, I had felt something that more intense than I ever felt was like, I was proud of myself, proud for like persevering. I didn't know how long this contract was going to last. I was just grateful. Extremely grateful after everything I've been through. And so I named my company, Rockstar Staffing. Used the RX in the prescription sign. And I was like, I'm going to be a rock star for this hospital. I will have their back forever. Like, loyalty means so much to me, and I want to be loyal to them for giving me a chance. And 13 weeks was up, and they're like, can you stay? I said, absolutely. But
I think I can.
I need $80 now. I started to get a little cocky. I was like, and I was talking to other travel nurses too, who were making twice as much as me. And I was like, I'm loyal to this company. I'm loyal to this hospital. I am not going to ask for too much too soon.
Yeah.
And I think it was December at this point, and I was sitting there just charting, and the nursing officer comes up to me and he says, hey, we need more nurses. Do you have any? And at that exact moment, I never thought about growing my company outside of myself.
Right.
It's amazing what opportunities just come to you without even asking for them sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I was dating a travel nurse. And so of course I was just like, hey, whenever your contract's up, do you want to come work for me? And the only rule was that she didn't have to call me boss. And I said, that's totally fine. Right. I paid her the max I could pay her. I lost money because I had to pay her ADP taxes, which I was so unfamiliar with what it costs to have an employee. So lost. I lost money. But I have a company now. I have an actual company.
Yeah.
And I'm so, again, that proud moment has not gone away, you know? And hospitals are starting to reach out to me now. Like I'm getting calls because I was like, oh my gosh, I need to get a website. So I got a website. I said, I need to do, search engine optimizers. So I put out my information and I put out my personal cell phone number.
A good one. All right. Like that.
Yeah. And I'm getting calls from Mercy in Des Moines. Do you have nurses? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm becoming a company.
Business. Yeah. So it sounds like kind of tail into 2021 into like really 2022 is when you guys kind of blew up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. By 2022, it was a system. Yeah. Like even at the end of 2021, it was a system. It was so easy because what was happening is I found out more information about the actual industry. I had no idea what I was doing in the beginning, but then I got serious about it. There was a time where I just turned it on and I said, I've got something here. And I started sending out Facebook messages to people that I knew that were nurses or CNAs or LPNs.
Yeah.
And I knew what market rates were, and they were far more what they were paying the nurses. Nurses during COVID thought they were making a lot of money. They had no idea what they were billing. They had no idea what these agencies were billing these poor hospitals and poor nursing homes just to have them there, just taking advantage of desperation, which money was my drive. I took part in, and I undercut these companies by 15%. And I made sure that my nurses were good at their job. I still had a high standard for my nurses. It wasn't just a warm body. I was very proud, but I was paying them what they were worth. So
yeah,
some nurses were making $50 more than their counterparts that were also travelers. So that's how I got the attention in my life, into my company, was I was paying them more. Money is a motivator for a lot of people. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this then. So 2022, 2023, that's when, I mean, is that safe to say that's kind of the point when you talk about money being your motivator, right? Like 2022, 2023, was those kind of the years when you first feel like you kind of really had money? Because I mean, you guys were doing crazy well.
It was when I got a bookkeeper with a website. I did the whole thing, and she started sending me my profits and losses, my P&L sheets, which is something I was not very familiar with. And I said, "There's no way we're doing this." She had let me know. She's like, "We have 17 nurses out there right now," and I was like, I made it. I said, I made it. I made it, and no one could tell me nothing. And it was just like a surreal moment when that happened. And I was just like, this is the pinnacle of my life. Like, let's keep this going. Let's make as much money as we can. Let's treat our nurses well. Let's have good care. It was a win-win-win all around.
But then at some point you decided, I mean, you had all this money, right? You're doing crazy well, and you decided to retire, right? So at what point did you decide, hey, I'm gonna retire?
Yeah, it was after I had, made that money and talked to my CPA, and they said, you need to buy real estate. And I never planned on being a real estate. And then I started to realize, okay, that money that's coming in is passive. Yeah. I had built somewhat of a system here in my small town. I knew enough people to take care of the things I needed to take care of. And I just started buying house after house after house after house. And I was like, this income's coming in. I've got rockstar money coming in. I'm going to go to Florida. I packed my stuff. I was travel nursing in a camper, so I just took my camper that I've been using. I picked up a motorcycle on the way there. I've never ridden a motorcycle. I get as far as Georgia, and I decided to take it off the hitch and drive it, dump it immediately, right? And I don't care. I was like, I didn't care. I was free. And I went out to New Smyrna Beach, Florida. And I said, I brought my family down. It was Christmas time at this point. So this was December 2021. I brought my family down there. I was like, I'm taking you guys on a Christmas trip. Like, let's go down here. It's all on me, and I stayed and I said, I could do this forever. I picked up a surfboard. I drove to the beach every single day. And I just surfed and ate fruit for months. And I was still running the company from there. I was still, managing nurses, taking phone calls, stuff like that. So I wasn't fully retired, wouldn't be the word. It's semi-retired because I didn't have set up the system. I didn't trust enough people to have them take over my job. But I was there. It was a couple of months, and then the strangest thing happened. I got depressed for the first time in my life. You'd think working those jobs would make me depressed. No, I had lost purpose. I had nothing. I mean, I had everything, and it got to the point, Jacob, where the only time I felt some kind of happiness is when I would look at my bank. I would look at my bank account multiple times a day just to feel something.
Yeah.
And that feeling was fleeting. It went away.
Well, and how many months had you been like semi-retired at this point?
I think I spent 4 months before I started making moves.
So what was kind of the next move? You're like, hey, my purpose is gone now. Like, living in Florida is great, but there's no purpose for me down here. So what move did you make to find your purpose again?
I got back into nursing. Yeah, I went back to being a travel nurse. Contracts were still out of control. And that's when wildly enough, again, money being my drive, I looked at the highest paying job. Yeah. And I took it, and it was in Iowa. It was in Iowa.
So you came back?
It was in Cresco, Iowa. It was 5 hours away from my home. It was the opposite corner, catty corner to the state. And at this point, it was March. So it's like coming around southwest Iowa, but northeast Iowa, it was still bitter cold.
Yep.
And I took a drive. I said, this is what I'm doing. I spent 4 days in Miami, just chilling before I took this contract, and made the 24-hour drive with my camper and my motorcycle all the way up the United States, from Miami to little Cresco, Iowa.
So how long were you in Cresco, Iowa then?
I re-signed my contract three times.
Okay.
I spent an entire year in Cresco because I was driven. I had found my purpose. It was intoxicating how awesome and how well this hospital was ran. The people there are just the best people, and the workers there are just such good coworkers. They care. They truly, truly care. And a lot of places I've been do care. These people, it was just such a tight-knit place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the culture can make all the difference in any job, really. But I mean, especially when you're looking for like purpose, like you were.
Yeah. And it was like in that time, I was so happy. I kind of went back to thinking about my life and how the chaos, is the money even worth this amount of chaos?
Yeah.
Does it even make sense to do this? And I still had my finger on the pulse with the travel companies and things like that. And I knew that hospitals were getting smart about not paying these staffing agencies these crazy amounts. And they actually started paying their nurses what they're worth to get them, keep them from leaving. So in that year, in that time frame, the travel nursing contract started to dry up. And I was strangely comfortable with it. I said, I'm not going to, I held on to people I held on to, but I didn't market anymore. I said, I'm going to let this thing just kind of fizzle out. I'm okay with that. I want to be a travel nurse again. It was still a stressful job. And I started to think about what I actually wanted. I wanted my mental health and my physical health. And if you know about starting a business, sometimes you have to cash those in. Yeah. Every now and then. And so in that year I spent there in Cresco, I started to reevaluate my life. And what I wanted to do. Did I want to be known as this guy that made money? And it's amazing how far I've come from being the kid I was to the man I am now. And I said, no, I don't give a about money, but I think you have to have money to say that.
Yeah.
I think you have to get to that point where you're just like, I experienced it. It did nothing for me.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. I think you have to be, kind of like guys like us, like we both didn't come from a lot, but then we ended up doing, decently well for ourselves. And we realized that while that's nice, particularly, I feel like, I don't know what your experience has been like, but, for me is like after like a year or two of having like, good money coming in all the time, you're kind of like, this is great, but it doesn't really do a ton for me,
Mm-hmm.
So, so you're kind of at that point then. So at some point you said you made a pivot, right? You reevaluated things. So is that when the intellectual disabilities kind of became more of a passion for you?
Yeah. So after I got the big contract with Clorinda, I fizzled out, taking care of the one I was taking care of. It's always been like an itch I always just kept it in the back of my mind. And while I was at Cresco, I said, switch me to nights. I've got some computer work to do. I've always been that hustler, I guess you could say. I was like, all right, while the floor is quiet, I'm going to start building this company. And so I started the company that I have now, Premier Host Homes. And in that time there, I have this real estate, right? I think we're up to 36 units at that point. And I've dealt with all walks of life. You want to know crazy, be a landlord, like sometimes you're just like, you think you know a guy, and I've had great tenants, but I've also had real bad ones.
Yeah.
And, and I'm dealing with their stuff, I'm dealing with I have to evict one person before. That's not a fun process. And I'm thinking these people are of sound minds, and they are able to work, and they're able to make good, rash decisions. There's nothing stopping them from living a fulfilled life. I'm talking with people that just I can communicate with that don't have any restrictions in life and are still choosing to be, and I said, I don't want to help those people anymore. I don't want to, you hear all the sob stories about why rent's late and why they can't pay. And then it's a cycle. It happens, and then you let it slide, and then it happens until forever. And then you have to pick a person out. And I'm like, jaded wouldn't be the word I would use, but I was definitely taken by this. And when I thought about caring for people with intellectual disabilities, I said, I want to help people who can't care for themselves. I want to enhance people's lives. And from what I remember from working, like a lot of these people, they look at going to Casey's as like, that's a good day.
Yeah.
That was a good day. Like, we got to go to Casey's. I got a soda today. And in my head, with all the traveling and stuff that I've done, I'm like, there's so much more to life. And I want to show people that. And so I started Premier Host Homes, and when tenants would move out, I wouldn't fill the house. I said, I'm going to dedicate this house to the process. I am going to partner with the state. And it was a long process, but insert Marissa here, who was the beginning of everything. Yeah. This woman is the beginning of everything. I, again, had no idea what I was doing. And this was the truest time that I felt the feeling of build a team around you that believes in your mission, and you can take over the world. And I believe that to this day. She was the first person on my team to help me accomplish this, and I would be nowhere without Marissa. To be honest, I would be nowhere, still lost, still shuffling papers. And she got me. It was wild. Our origin story is probably a whole nother podcast. But I was out. I took a road trip from San Diego to Whistler, British Columbia in my Jeep, and I was just sleeping on my tent in my Jeep. I was doing this whole thing. I was surfing the coast, man, and we met, and I was like, I'm in Vancouver. Come see me in Canada. And I don't know how many days it was when she came out. It was 2 days?
Yeah, he's like, I'm doing this road trip. I was like, I'll just like meet you in Canada. It's fine. He's like, really?
Yeah.
Sure, let's do it.
So she came out to Canada, and then I had my laptop and all my stuff with me, and I told her about this thing I wanted to do. Like, this was my last trip before I buckled down and got busy with building this company, Premier Health Talk. And I had my laptop, and she's listening, actively listening. And this girl, she doesn't know me. She doesn't know who she came out to meet a guy in Vancouver, whatever, dude. And she's like, tell me more about this company. Well, what's next? What do you have to do next? I was like, well, there's some kind of form I have to fill out. She's like, do you have your laptop? I was like, yeah. She's like, let me do some research. Let me see. This woman took charge. And we're going to Banff National Park and Jasper, and we have 4 or 5 hour trips, 4 or 5 hours.
Working the whole way.
Yeah.
She's working the whole way.
The laptop was dead, and we couldn't charge it on the road. So all we had was the iPad, and so I'm like using PDF filler to like type. It was a whole thing, but
it did not take long before I asked her to come on, stop her job. She's a nurse. She's a psych nurse, house supervisor in Des Moines, and she came on. She burned her boats too. She said, "I put in my 2 weeks." She didn't even tell me that. She didn't even tell me.
Surprise! I'm coming with you.
Yeah, and the truest person in my company to just really believe in what I wanted to do and had the same mission and goals I had. And gosh, she got us we went live November 24th last year, 2023. Mm-hmm. November 24th was our anniversary. And within a year, we housed 11 people.
Wow.
And I think 5 was our starting. 5 was like Seth's starting goal. And then we had 11. And I was like, what just happened?
I have never in my life, making money is awesome. Giving it away feels so much better. In a controlled environment, I'm not saying donate all your money to something you don't care about or whatever. Oh my gosh, we take these people to one guy. It's like we're morbidly, I make the joke that we're like the Make-A-Wish Foundation, but no one's terminal. One guy's like, I want to see Denver Broncos Stadium. I said, you want to go to a game? And he's just like, no, I just want to be inside the stadium. So we coordinated with them. They were gracious enough to let us come in on a random day. And he just walked around for about 2.5 hours. And he's just there. He looked unhappy, but he wanted to stay. And you're like, are you not having a good time? He's like, I'm fine. And he takes pictures out in front of the stadium. And he doesn't care about players. He just wanted to see that stadium. And so he went to the mountains.
I mean, Seth, I want to make sure you understand, this is an incredible journey you've been on, from getting kicked out of school, 4 times, to making enough money that you're giving some away to take care of people with intellectual disabilities and giving away homes. Is that right?
Yeah.
To this business you created?
Yeah. Yeah. We gave away 5 and we gave away 2 more. And it's awesome that it's a purpose. That's the best term I can give to it, is just, it's not for me. This is not for me. We now have 25 employees who I love, and they love me, and they believe in my mission. They're excited about what to do. They're on board with everything. I want to give everything I have to them, because without them, this is nothing.
So let me ask you, let me break down this a little bit. So, I mean, this incredible journey, right? It's really been all about finding that purpose and driving towards it, right? So if somebody listening out there is struggling with, not having this purpose as you have at times, what kind of advice would you give them?
Oh, that's such a good question. I'm not quite sure. If you're searching for a purpose, I think that's a solo journey. It can be, but something I tell my brother is just be more open to opportunities because you never know.
Yeah.
I tell my brother, I say, keep saying yes to things. Experience, because again, I realized that 6 or 7 years of just blinders and my head down. This is what I've got to do. And I wasn't open to the world around me.
Yeah.
And so as far as like finding purpose, that is a solo journey and it can be hard, but just as cliche as it is, just get to know yourself, get real with yourself and, know what truly makes you happy. It sounds crazy because I thought money made me happy and that wasn't it. And you're going to be wrong sometimes, but that's what, just keep saying yes to more opportunities.
Yeah. Well, I love that. When I think you really hit on something too, that honestly, I tell people in my life, but also tell all my coaching clients all the time is to always be experimenting, And I mean, you thought that PT was going to be the end all be all, that was going to be the biggest thing. And it ended up not being, and that's not a failure because you were just experimenting. You were trying something and it didn't work out the way you expected. So then you did a pivot and you tried a new experiment and you tried a nursing school and that ended up being a great thing to do. Right.
It all came together, man.
So let's talk about some business a little bit more here. So we were talking about some challenges and goals that you guys have moving into 2025, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we were talking about like putting some systems together around like the hiring process, making sure that you're using your time efficiently, and then like working on like the growth and projected growth for this new venture of yours. Was there one of those or a different one that you wanted to dive into?
Mostly it's just efficiency. Mm-hmm. I think one struggle that I have as a company is the use of technology, and I don't know what I don't know.
Sure.
And I know that we live in a world that's just freaking awesome. Like the playing field has never been more even for just Joe Schmo to come up and make so much money because there's so many opportunities out there. So one of our goals in 2025, and will continue to be that way, is how do we become more efficient? And our motto here at Premier Host Homes is progress and safety.
Yeah.
So progress with our members, that's never going to go away. But from a business standpoint, from internally with my admin team, how do we become more efficient? How do we utilize technology to our advantage?
So let's talk about it a little bit. So are you guys using like your coordinating calendars? Do you guys use like task software? What is like where does your time looks like now?
Whew. You know what's so funny is before I met Seth, I had never even heard of a host home. So it has been a wild ride with him for sure. And in the beginning, we had no systems. There was no game plan. I started making everything on Excel sheets. I started tracking everything manually. We were writing checks to people to pay them, like actual checks.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. We are learning systems as we go. I won't lie. Our bookkeeper now pays people, which is great.
Good.
And it's learning system by system and using a time clock to give them like a list of tasks to do versus, hey, I'm going to text you a list.
Yeah. Communicating through like an encrypted software so that we can actually talk about, it's not cell phones anymore. It's archaic. It seems like
it started that way.
It still is. I feel like there's so much more growth, but we just don't know what else is out there. Scheduling can be so much more efficient. And we look at things that are just big pains and time sucks. Yeah. And how do we make these more efficient? And how do we systemize these things? And I so look forward to that moment. But
when it's ready to go.
Our to-do list tray will never be empty.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't mind, let me make some suggestions here for you, and you guys can kind of tell me good, bad, or indifferent, okay? Well, the biggest one first, and just kind of managing time in general, at least for any individual, is time blocking. Have you guys messed with that much?
I have. I've looked into it, but I see that dial that you twist to, it sets a timer and it lets you just hyper focus, but I have not actually followed through. So is that something that helps you?
So that's 100% something that helps me. So what my day-to-day looks like, obviously there's, every day can be different, particularly as an entrepreneur. But let's say it's like towards the end of the day on a Monday. And I know that I've got, these two big tasks or two big projects that I have to get done on Tuesday. And I know that it'll take me an hour or 2 hours. I will actually time block, say, hey, at 8 or 9 o'clock, whenever I start my day, I will spend the next 2 hours working on that one thing. And the next hour will be set aside for the next thing. And then you actually schedule in your lunches. Now, when it comes to time blocking, my personal favorite kind of side strategy to that is what I call chaos time. Have you guys heard of that before?
Tell me.
So that is when, as you know, even as an entrepreneur or not, there's time in your day when kind of things just hit the fan. Things go crazy. There's a fire that only you can put out and you have to do it right here, right then and there. So I will actually schedule in 30 to 60 minutes in my day, every single day, for chaos time. So when something goes crazy, when stuff pops off that I have to deal with right then and there, I have the time set aside for it. And if nothing happens, then I have an extra hour or half an hour to get something else done.
I love that. Chaos time can be very frequent.
I was going to say, I think on my Friday I had 8 hours of
chaos time. Yeah, sometimes it becomes your whole day.
It's so true. I do have I journal every day. I do have
love it.
It's a packet that I made for myself. It's just things that are important. So health and fitness and wellness. And so my diet plan's all printed out. And then I have a form that says, what do you want your day to look like? Across the top. That's my checklist of things that I have to get done: cold plunging, sauna, workout, change, make my food, take my supplements. And then it has hashes, what I have to get done that day. And it's just a way to get my thoughts out of my head. So that's what I do. But I've also looked at, at my workstation, because I could, if I have a clock that's next to me and I can preset it and it's something, it's got to be fun. It's got to be something I can rotate. That's just
that's your thing. Yep. Got to have something physical.
Yeah,
Love it.
And then it's like a ticking time bomb. And then that's when I have to focus. I don't look at it again. I'm reading and I'm immersed in what I'm reading. But it has to be something I'm fascinated with, which might not always be business.
Yeah.
Insert Marissa, who is the smartest woman I've ever met. And she can seem to focus on everything. It's amazing. I envy it. It's amazing. But time blocking is definitely something I'll have to look into. And I'll kind of get back with you and let you know how things go with that.
I was going to say, it's a powerful one. You just got to, set aside like the 5 minutes at the end of the day to plan your next day. And then, it can be a real game changer in terms of focus and getting stuff done.
Oh yeah.
Thank you guys so much for, spending some time with us today. So, Seth, Marissa, where can folks learn more about you guys?
So yeah, our website's currently being created. We have the domain. You can find out more about us in about 3 weeks.
Okay.
We are premier-ia.com. That's super simple. And so the idea is that we eventually grow into more states, and that's what the IA is about, ride or die state. But yeah, that's where people can find out more about us, come along with the journey, because seeing it happen in real time, changing people's lives is freaking awesome. And then going back to the memories is it's just as powerful to me. I love what I do. I love it.
Love it.
Look forward to all the fundraisers and sporting tournaments and all that kind of stuff.
Fundraisers. For my Corinda people, we bought pool cats, and all money is donated back to the city. We bought pool cats so that our people could have jobs, work W-2 jobs, and be contributing members to society. And we're not
absolutely incredible. That's fantastic. You guys are absolute rock stars. If nobody's told you today, you guys are rock stars. All right. Believe it.
Thanks, Dad.
Well, thank you guys again for joining me here on Purpose Driven Progress. For more stories and strategies, make sure to subscribe and follow along with us. And be sure to share this with somebody that's an entrepreneur or business person in your life. Thanks.